So today we're going to do the handover video on this Laika Kosmo 6.0. We're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. I'd like to start off this video by just explaining the vehicle hasn't yet had a valet. I just wanted to get this video completed and ready for you for your collection. So moving on, going to the passenger side, you can see that you've got your fill-up point here. You've got your AdBlue, which is just below your diesel fill-up point. Now your AdBlue has been topped up from factory. It will be thirsty, or quite thirsty rather, for the first 7,000 miles, but then after that, once it's primed through the system, it won't be as thirsty and it'll be a little bit more efficient. So your fill-up points on your passenger side. Opening up the passenger door, you'll notice that your bonnet release catch is just located on this side here. I'll pull that to release the bonnet. And you'll also notice that this vehicle is fitted with Remis cab blinds. To operate these, all you'll need to do is simply pinch the plastic tab and pull out like so. If you lead the blind from the bottom, just like that, it will then allow you to connect it up via the magnetic strip, allowing you to black out the entire cab. You've got these on all your windows, including your front windscreen as well, and again, they simply pinch and then pull out, and using the magnetic strap, the magnetic tab in the middle, they just connect together. When you're taking these back in, simply pull away from the magnetic strip and lead from the bottom. As you can see, I'm pulling from the bottom, and that then connects into place and locks in. Now, as a rule of thumb with anything in a motorhome, if it feels like it's being forced, you're probably doing something wrong. So just take your time just to evaluate what you're doing and then have another go. Now, moving up to the underside of the bonnet rather. The main things that you need to know underneath here is how to jump start the vehicle. To jump start the vehicle, you've got your negative terminal, which is just here below the sticker, and then your positive terminal is just located here. Now there's a cap that folds onto that. It's a little bit difficult to see on the video, but there's a plus sign on there. Simply flick that up and that's where your positive terminal connects onto. Just this tab here. They're the main things that you need to know, but just to point out a couple more things, you've got your engine oil here. You've then got your brake disc fluid above, your engine coolant, and then right in the corner here, you've got your washer fluid for the front windscreen. Moving around to the side of the vehicle, this motorhome is fitted with a Thule awning. Now I'll send you a separate video showing you how to operate the awning, but two main things to know about the awning when in use. If it is a windy day, please take the awning in, because as you can imagine, if you get a little bit of wind underneath there, it could potentially pull the awning away, damaging your vehicle and also other vehicles on site, because it's like having a massive sail on the side of the van. So just bear that in mind. And the other thing as well is, although the awning can be used when it is raining, I would advise taking it in if it is raining, because at some point you will need to dry that awning out, and you don't want to leave it rolled up for too long if it is raining, because obviously it will just lead to mould and decay the awning, so just bear that in mind. But like I mentioned, I will send you a separate video showing you how to operate the awning. Your legs are on the inside, they just fold down and take the weight of the awning canopy. You can see here you've got your sliding door, which will gain you access onto the inside of the vehicle. Now we'll jump on into the vehicle shortly. I'll carry on doing the outside first. On the back end, you've actually got a fill-up point here. This is a fill-up point for your fresh water tank. So all you'll need to do is undo this cap, remove it, and then fill it up using a food-grade hose pipe when you're on site. I would recommend using a food-grade hose pipe. That way you don't get any build-up of bacteria when putting it in the tank. However, I wouldn't advise drinking directly out of the tank. If you're drinking water, take bottled water with you. But as I say, you'll be fine to wash with it and boil the water. You won't have any issues with that. But as I say, I wouldn't drink directly out of the tap. Moving towards the back, you've then got your two rear doors, which will gain you access into the rear of the motorhome. In the rear of the motorhome, you've got a really good bit of storage in here, and you can see that you've got your makeup bed here for the front bed, which is just in there at the moment. You've also got your warning winder as well, which is here, and on the other side you can see that in here there's a bit of your paperwork for the vehicle and your inflation kit, but this is where your gas bottles are located. As you can see, there is a pigtail already in there, which is that yellow pipe there, which will connect your gas bottle to your gas regulator, which is that piece of metal up there. One thing to know is when you're travelling, always have the gas bottles turned off at the bottle, but then when you're stationary, you can turn them on. You should never travel with your gas on, because as you can imagine, it is a risk. If you're ever involved in a collision, it's highly dangerous, so please ensure that when you're travelling, your gas is turned off, and when you're stationary, you can turn it on and flow it through the vehicle. Now with this bed, you do have the capability of removing this middle section. So say for example you are storing bikes on the inside of the vehicle, or something that a little bit larger. These pieces here, just underneath the bed, you can see actually remove. They can come out. You can either store them at home, or you can stick them on this side of the vehicle. And you can see you've got some ratchet straps here just to hold everything into position for when you are travelling. Now on this side, you've got a little hatch. So I'll just move this mattress up. You can see it'll gain you access to the hatch. If I remove this, you can see it'll gain you access to your fresh water tank, which, as I mentioned, your fill-up point is on the other side. Here you've got a red cap on the top, which you can actually remove. And you've also got a little drain down point here. So the cap here is if you're ever wanting to clean out the tank. Now, as I mentioned, I personally wouldn't recommend drinking out of the tank. So this step really isn't necessary. It doesn't need to be done frequently. I'd say once or twice a year, just you can give it a clean out, and you can use purifying tablets in there just to clean out the tank should you want to. But that is what that cap is for. It's to gain you access into the fresh water tank in order to clean it. Now this little black, as I say, knob here, this dial, this is linked to the fresh water tank, and this will allow you to drain down the tank. Now you've got three main drain down points in the vehicle. You've got your fresh water, which is here. You've then got your wastewater drain down point, which is actually located on the outside of the vehicle. And then you've got your boiler drain down point, which again is on the inside of the van, which I'll get to as we move through to the inside. They're all really important. You need to ensure they are all completely drained down for when you are not using the vehicle. Now, this time of year when it's nice and warm, it's not really a requirement. So you can leave the water in there, as it's not going to freeze. But especially in the winter months, you need to ensure that everything is completely drained down. And I typically say, if you're not using the vehicle, just drain everything down. The main reason being is it'll get you into the habit of getting everything drained down for when you're not using it. So when it comes the winter, you're already in the habit of draining everything down. But also, if you leave the vehicle for months on end and you've got water sitting in the tanks, it's obviously going to smell eventually. Stagnant water is no good. So if you can just get into the habit of draining it down, that's the best thing to do. Now, to drain this tank down, all you've got to do is turn this dial here until it starts draining down. Now, we've no water in the tank at the moment. That has been drained down after its PDI process. But that will basically drain down directly underneath the vehicle. To seal this unit up, all you've got to do is just turn it like so, and then you can then tighten it into position. Now, when it's tightened into position, you're all good to go. You can fill up the tank. Just coming back onto the draining down side of things, though, is if you have got two options to drain this down. You can drain down the entire tank, should you want to, or you can drain the entire tank just down to 20 litres. And it's designed as a quick drain down. So all you've got to do is simply turn this valve, and there's a little lug, so I can actually feel it now. It's obviously a little bit difficult to show you on camera, but there's a little lug here which is stopping it from turning. And if you was to drain or turn this valve up until that point, that would drain the entire tank down to 20 litres. And that's designed for if you're wanting to travel with water, you should only travel with a maximum of 20 litres as advised by the manufacturer. And that's really if you're moving on to your next site and you want a little bit of water in the tank for maybe a cup of tea or anything like that. If you're stopping off anywhere, you can leave 20 litres in. You shouldn't really travel with 100 litres in the vehicle, because as you can imagine, it's going to affect your payload, but also the weight distribution of the vehicle, because it's all on one side. So just bear that in mind. Now, if you want to drain the entire tank down, all you've got to do, I don't know whether you heard that, there's a little lug that just clicked. Just keep draining past that, or keep turning past that until it gets a little bit tighter, and then that will drain down the entire tank. So I'll leave that open for the time being, and that hatch can then slot back onto there nice and easy. There's a few more things on the bed, but I'll show you that, and obviously we've got all these cupboards here, but I'll show you that as we move on to the inside. Moving to the other side of the vehicle, you can see that here you've got a cassette locker. With the locker door open, you can see it'll gain you access to the cassette. So your cassette is where all your waste when using the toilet will go, and at some point you are going to need to empty it. To remove it, all you've got to do is pull up on this blue tab and slide the cassette out towards you. Once you've done that, you can then pull it all the way out, and there'll be a point on the site where there'll be a big grid that you can dispose of the waste. And to do that, you need to pull the cassette all the way out, like so. I'll pop it on the ground to show you. And to drain it, you pull out the funnel, remove the blue cap, and click the blue button on the back. That blue button will activate a vacuum in the cassette, and will allow you to get rid of all the waste nice and easy. And once you've done that, if you've got like blue fluid which will break down the waste on the inside of the cassette, you can just stick that on the inside of the cap. There's a little measurement on there which will indicate how much you need. You can then pop the cap back on, push the funnel back into position, and then pop the cassette back into its slot there. Now, one thing to bear in mind is before removing this, you need to ensure that the blade on the toilet is closed. So before filming this video, I made sure that that was the case and it was closed. The blade on the toilet is a piece of plastic that is actually on the toilet which will allow you to open and close the cassette during use. Now I'll show you how that operates when we're on the inside of the vehicle, but please ensure that that is done, because if that blade is open and you come to remove the cassette, all that will happen is it will get caught and stuck. And previously customers have been known to force that, which will pull it and obviously break the cassette. So just make sure that's the case, that blade is closed so it can be removed easily. But once you've drained it down, it's good to go back into the position like I mentioned. One final thing, you'll also notice there's this blue toggle here which actually moves. That blade that I was just mentioning actually connects to this and allows you to open and close the cassette. So if that is in that position, it won't let you remove it or put it back in. So this needs to stay in this position. There should be no need for you to remove that. If you've got the cassette out and the dial is like this, you don't need to do anything. Leave it as it is, and that will allow you to line it back up for when you're popping it back in. So now you've drained down your cassette, all you've got to do, stick it back into position like I mentioned, push it all the way in until you hear the clip. That click will then allow the clip to slot into place, and then it's nice and solid for when you're travelling. Now directly below your cassette you have got a second drain down point. As you can see, there you are, your discharge pipe there. That's for your wastewater tank which is underslung in the vehicle. And to empty this, you can see you've got a little metal bar here. Somewhere in the vehicle you'll have a little handle which will simply connect onto that, and you can then turn that, and that will allow you to drain down the wastewater tank. So on site, similar to the cassette, there'll be a big grid that you can drain down all your water. So you can drain down your fresh water, your boiler, and also your wastewater. And like I mentioned for the fresh, make sure that this is drained down all the time, even more so with the wastewater tank, as this is the only tank that's underslung, so this could potentially freeze when you're using the vehicle. So with that in mind, I'd recommend leaving that open and put a bucket underneath in the colder climates, as that could potentially freeze without you knowing. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, all you got to do, connect it onto there, turn the handle, that will drain down the tank. And what I typically say is, once you've drained down all your drain down points in the vehicle, to leave all of them open, because as you're travelling, all that residual water will find its way out as you're travelling home because of the vibrations of the road, and it'll just ensure that any bit of water is out, ensuring that nothing's going to freeze in the vehicle when you come to store it. So moving to back towards the front of the vehicle, you can see that you've got your hookup point for your 230 volt electric. This will gain you access to 230 volts, so it'll allow you to use your 230 volt 3-pin plugs, as well as charging up your leisure battery. So that just pops into there. Next to that, you've then got your Truma vent. This can get quite hot. This is basically the vehicle's chimney, so don't hang anything on there. Just give it a little bit of a wide berth if you can. And then next to that, you've then got your Bullfinch gas point for an external barbecue point. Now you'll need a little bayonet fitting which will connect into there, and that can connect onto a bit of rubber pipe via a Jubilee clip, and then you can then connect that to your barbecue. That's all wired in and ready for your gas. So when you're stationary, turn your gas on and then you can start barbecuing. So it's dead easy. And that really concludes the outside of the vehicle. We're now going to move on to the inside. Rightio, so we're now on the inside of the motorhome. As I walk through the door, you can see that on the left hand side you've got your control panel along with your control panel for the heating. So firstly, the main control panel is here. You've got your on and off switch here. This will activate everything in the vehicle. That's your main isolator switch, which will turn on and off the leisure battery. And you can see when doing that, it turns on and off your lights, as you can see. Now, above that, you'll notice that I'm hooked up to 230 volt electric, and you can see that the vehicle recognises this, indicated by the amber light. If you're hooked up, you should always get this symbol, or this little light next to the symbol at least, as that will ensure that the vehicle is recognising that it's receiving charge, so you'll be good to go. If you're not getting that, there may be a fault with your hookup cable or an issue on site, so just bear that in mind. Next to everything else, next to the power button, you've got pretty much everything that you need to know in terms of your water values and your leisure battery voltage. So at the moment, if I click this, it will indicate your leisure battery. So at the moment we're at 100% as indicated. We're at about 13.5 volts. As we are hooked up, you can see that it's receiving the charge. Underneath that, you've then got your fresh water level. Hold that. We've not got anything at the moment, hence why it's flashing, and it's below 25%. And then the same thing for your wastewater. Hold that, and you can see there's absolutely nothing in there. There's no reading whatsoever, again because we've nothing in the wastewater tank. Up at the top, you've then got your main control panel for your heating. So this is dead simple. Basically everything below the line is what you want to select. Just come a bit closer here just to give you a better indication. Anyway, so you've got this dial which will allow you to flick through the options. The first one is your vehicle's temperature. Now you can take this all the way up to 30 degrees should you want to, and this is for the space heater. You've then got your water temperature, so you can either have this on Eco, Hot or Boost. Eco is approximately 40 degrees, Hot is approximately 70 degrees, and Boost will concentrate on heating the water rather than the vehicle itself. Next up, you've then got your fuel. So this is really important. This is what you can now decide what you want to fuel it with, or fuel your heating with. So you can either run it off gas, Mix 1, which is a mixture of gas and 1 kilowatt electric, Mix 2, which is a mixture of gas and 2 kilowatt electric, EL1, which is purely 1 kilowatt electric, or EL2, which is 2 kilowatt electric. And you need to decide whatever you've got on site or whatever you've got handy available, you need to select. So say for example you're wild camping, you need to run this off your gas. And if you're on site and you're hooked up, as I am now, you need to run it off your electric. Next up, you've then got your fan speed. So at the moment, because I've not got anything selected, it's just giving me the option of vent, which will recirculate the air in the vehicle. But when you've selected your vehicle's heating, that will give you the option of Eco or High. Eco will obviously activate the fan and start blowing the air through, and High is just a more intensified version of that basically. At the bottom, you've then got, as you can see, a little timer, so you can actually select a time of when you want the heating to come on and when you want it to come off. You've then got the time on the actual clock itself, so you can change the time on there. But then the most important bit is your settings. Click on your settings. In here you've got various things like your brightness of the screen, index and everything, but the main thing that you need to know is your reset button. Now you'll need to know how to reset the panel if you ever get an error code in the motorhome. You'll get an error code typically because, say for example, you've selected a fuel that you haven't got. The boiler is trying to heat the vehicle on something that it's not got access to. So say for example, I was supposed to, to put this on gas, to run it off gas, and I've not got any gas in the vehicle. What will happen is I'll turn that on, try and run it off gas, and then the boiler will fault because it's trying to power the vehicle with something that it's not got. So you'll get an error code on here. If you've got that error code, all you need to do is go to that settings panel, go to the reset, click the reset. It may ask you to preset it, just click again and that will reset the entire panel. Now the panel will flicker, it'll say initialize, and then it'll come on after about 20 seconds. Now you do need to wait a full 20 minutes for this panel to completely reset, so just bear that in mind. Another point as well is please ensure that this panel is turned off before you move off site. Because say for example you're on site and you're running this heater off 230 volts, if you remove the 230 volt plug or hookup cable rather before turning this on, what that will mean is next time you come to use it, the panel will not work. It will have an error code and you'll need to reset it because you've taken that fuel away that it was using, and it will immediately fault. So just bear that in mind. If you can get into the habit of turning that off before you remove the 230 volt hookup cable or the gas, it will save you a lot of time when you come to use the vehicle next. To turn this off, all you've got to do is hold the button in like that, and eventually it will say off. There we are, and that will turn it off, and then you're good to go. So moving down from the control panel, you've then got, as you can see, your kitchen area. You've got your fridge, which is on the end here, which is lovely and accessible. You've got your freezer up at the top, along with your fridge, which is down at the bottom. Now, to control this, the controls are just located here at the front. To turn this on, all you've got to do is hold this button, and that will start flashing, and it will indicate that it's turned on, and then you're good to go. This is a Thetford fridge. I don't know whether you can actually see that on the video. There we are, it's a little bit better. And that will turn the fridge on. As you can see, that will then begin to get cold. So I've come a little bit closer here so you can actually see it's a little bit easier now. So you can see, yeah, your main power button is here. If I hold that, it will then allow you to select a few options. So you can change the temperature of the fridge should you want to, and then when they're blinking, that will then allow you to change it. As you can see, just by touching it, it's just all touch sensitive. And you can, if you wanted, put it on a night mode, which was originally set to. Now this fridge runs off the 12 volt leisure battery, so you don't need to select a fuel. So it's nice and easy. All you've got to do is turn it on, and then it'll start running off the leisure battery, and then you're good to go. Dead simple. Obviously all you've got to do is hold that button just to turn it off, and then the fridge has been turned off. You'll probably hear the fan that stopped working now, because as I say, I've turned it off and it's deactivated. Now one thing with the fridge is obviously this isn't as powerful as a normal fridge, so one thing you've got to bear in mind is it does a really good job at maintaining the temperature of things, but not the best of jobs at getting it down to temperature. So with that in mind, if you want cool things to be in the fridge, just put cool things in there, and the same thing for the freezer. If you want frozen things in the freezer, just put the frozen items in there, and it will really help to maintain the temperature. Moving on, you can see you've got your hobs here, along with your sink, which is next to it, and you've also got a little bit of storage up here, which matches the cabinets throughout the motorhome. You've got two 230 volt sockets which are here, which will only work when you're plugged into mains electric, and then you can see you've got some mood lighting which just comes on around the top of the cabinets, and then another light here which is for the bedroom, as you can see. Now for your sink, you'll notice on the main panel you've no pump button. The reason for it is this has got a pump already built in to the tap. So this has got a micro switch on, which will activate and deactivate the pump whenever you need it. Now only run the pump if you've got water in the tank. Obviously I have no water in at the moment, so I'm not going to run the pump, because if I did that, eventually it would burn the pump out. But all you've got to do is turn that on, and that will activate the pump and pull the water in. So once you're on site and you've filled it with water, do exactly that. Turn this on and turn it to hot, and what that will do is pull it from the fresh water tank into the boiler and then out to the tap. It'll spurt and splutter, and then when it's running steadily, you've primed your system for your hot water. Once you've done that, flick it over to cold and do the exact same. That will pull water from the fresh water tank out to the tap, and again when it's running steadily, you've primed your system. Now you will have to be quite patient with when it's pulling through the boiler. As you can imagine, that boiler holds about 10 litres of water, so it is going to take a bit of time to prime that up. But if this is the first thing you do on site, once you're filled up and you pull your water through, you'll be good to go, because you can then turn your heating on, and that will then allow your boiler to heat that water up. Heating your water up will take about 30 to 40 minutes depending on what you're fueling it off. So with that in mind, as I say, if that's the first thing that you do on site, you get filled up with water, you prime your system and you turn your boiler on. By the time you've got everything right in the vehicle and you're ready for some warm water, it'll be nice and ready for you and up to temperature. Now underneath that, you can see then you've got your oven, which is just here, which will run off your gas. And next to that, you've got a little bit more storage as well. Storage in this vehicle is fantastic considering the size. You've got your cutlery drawer here, and then a really big slide out cabinet just underneath that. They all have got the locks here, just push them in just to lock it in, so then it can't come loose. Opposite the kitchen area is of course the bathroom. So we've spoken obviously about priming your system for all your taps. The same goes for your shower. For your tap in your shower, this actually does double up as the shower head. You can simply pull this out like so, and that just connects onto here. And then all you've got is just up behind this door. If I jump in, you've got your curtain, which will wrap around and just protect the entire bathroom area if you are wanting to take a shower in here. The main thing that, of course, we need to discuss is your toilet. Now, I've shown you how to remove the cassette and dispose of the waste. The thing that I kept on mentioning was the blade, which is this piece of plastic here. Pull that towards you to open the blade, push it away from you to close the blade. So when the cassette is in use, you of course need to open it so all the waste can drop into the cassette. Once you've done that, you need to click that blue button, which is up at the top. That will activate your flush and flush the system. And once you've done that, you just need to close the blade. You close the blade for two reasons. The main reason being is it will stop odours from escaping. But two is it will just get you into the habit of having that closed. So every time you come to remove the cassette, you don't run into that issue that I mentioned earlier where it starts getting jammed. And in the back of the vehicle, you've then got your bed. You've got a large double bed here. As I say, on this side, which I showed you, is where your freshwater tank is and where you can drain it down and clean it. You've actually also got another access point here to that freshwater tank. You can just pop this hatch up and that will gain you another access point to clean the tank should you need to. And I'll slot that back into position like so. On the other side here, I'll just lift this area up. And as you can see, with the mattress removed, you've got another hatch which I've just removed here. That gives you a really good bit of storage underneath the vehicle for any folded clothes or anything like that. And you can see right in the corner there, you've got a little hatch which will gain you access to the electrical side. You won't really need to access that hatch. That's really there for the technicians if we need to work on any electrics in the motorhome. Now above the bed, as I mentioned on the outside, you've got a really good bit of storage space with these lockers opening, and you can see you've also got a skylight. Your skylight has got a blackout blind on and a fly screen, and to open this you need to just press that in and then pull that lever back. That will open the skylight. Please ensure that when you're travelling, this skylight is sealed. You should always have this in the lock position when travelling, because if not, you could have a little bit of wind that gets underneath there that could rip the skylight off, and that's something that you definitely don't want So just bear that in mind. Now, the same goes for all your windows. You've got one here and a couple at the front. I'll show you the one in the front later, but the same thing applies. When you're traveling, you should always keep them sealed. You should never have them on venting, because again, a little bit of airflow could get underneath there and rip the window away, so just bear that in mind. Finally, underneath the bed, like I mentioned, you can actually remove these pieces here of the bed if you wanted to increase your storage. If you were storing bikes or anything a little bit larger. If you wanted to, you can actually slide this out, this piece of wood, that removes, if needs be. And again, you could store that on top of the bed if you're wanting to store long items through here. Moving back to the front area of the vehicle, you can see you've got a nice bit of hanging space, which is here, along with a hatch to some of your pipe work, which again is really for the technicians. Above that, you've then got your 12 volt points if you want to charge your phone. And you can see we fitted a TV at the front on a slide out bracket. The slide out bracket just works by pinching this forward and sliding the bracket out like so. Above your lounge area, you've also got another bit of storage, and you can see your solar panel regulator has been fitted along with the aerial. Your aerial is just located here. It's a max view aerial. There's a little switch on there where you can turn it on and off, but I personally just leave that on. You can see, as indicated by the blue light, that shows that it's on and it's receiving signal. In your lounge area, you have got, as you can see, your seat belts, which you can pull forward. We've just tucked them behind now, just to make it look a little bit neater. And underneath here is where all your trip boxes are, your final drain down point, and your isolation valves. So your isolation valves are these little taps here. These will allow you to isolate certain areas of the vehicle. Now, you don't need to really do anything with these. These are again for the technicians. These allow us to test certain areas of the van when checking for gas leaks. So leave that as it is. If the vehicle ever trips, however, you can come to this point here. You've got all your trip switches here. And again, if anything was to blow in terms of fuses, they're actually located underneath your passenger seat, just by flicking that little piece of plastic down, that vent, that cover there. Just by flicking that down, that will gain you access to the fuses. And then finally, as I mentioned in here, you've got your drain down point for your boiler, which is the final drain down point. Now, the great thing with this is actually a frost protection valve. It, as I say, is linked to the boiler. Now, as indicated by the sticker, at the moment it is open. You know that because the diamond is in this position. There's a little black nib on the upside of that, which has just popped up, and then you've got a little blue tab on the outside which is pinged out. To seal this, all you need to do, press that in, turn the diamond first, and then press the blue tab in until it's flush. That boiler is now sealed, and you can then begin to flow the water through. To drain this, turn the diamond like so. That will empty and drain the boiler, and again you can do that over a large grid on site and just leave that open when travelling home. Now, as I mentioned, this is a frost protection valve, so this does actually react to temperature. So if you was to forget that there was water in the boiler, when this gets to a certain temperature, this will automatically trip and drain down all of the water. Now, saying that, if you're using the vehicle, you've got the heating running, obviously this will only freeze if you freeze, so don't worry about it just dumping the water when you're in the middle of using it. It won't do that. It'll only do it when you're storing the vehicle and, as I say, you've forgot to drain down the tank. What can happen, however, is if you've not used the vehicle in a while and you come to use it in a cold climate, you may go to turn this and then seal the boiler by pressing this button in, and what will happen is it'll keep pinging out. The reason for that is there's some solution in here which reacts to the temperature, and if it's too cold it won't allow you to seal the boiler. So if that does happen, all you'll need to do is come to your control panel here, turn your heating on, the vehicle heating, not the boiler heating, and that will allow you just to heat that area up, and after about 30 minutes you can then just pop that in, and that will be nice and sealed, ready for you to fill it up with water. Now, coming away from that, we're now going back into the lounge area. This area does actually turn into a bed should you need to. Now, all I've done here is I've removed the leg from the lower part of the table. Where the rail where the table was originally connected onto the rail, I've just lowered that, and there's a rail underneath there which it just connects to. You can see that that's nice and solid and ready to be supported. Next up, to turn this into a bed, you've then got this piece here, as you can see. All you've got to do, and I'll set this up for you, but just to explain, this leg folds out like so, which creates the base for it, and these pieces just hook in. So the metal piece will hook into here, and then that flat section there will just go in between here and create an area or a solid base for the bed. And then in the back you've got your cushions, which will then just make up onto that. I'll show you how that can be done now. And just like that, you can see by hooking up the metal piece onto this section here and that connecting underneath the table will create a large base ready for a bed. As I say, the cushions are in the back. They will just lay flat onto here, and you can have your third berth which will just lay onto here. And you can see, just like that, you're then back to your lounge. All I've done, connected that back up, removed the base, and then connected that back up into this position so the table can be used. Now the final thing, you've also got a few switches here, or a few lights rather, that you can actually move around the vehicle. There's a live track here which you can then hook into. You can buy USBs as well. There's actually already one in the vehicle here. And then finally, on all your windows, like I mentioned, you need to ensure that these are sealed when you are travelling. But to open them up, just release the clips here, and you can slide it out like so. They've got a little, I don't know whether you heard that, like a ratchet mechanism, which will just connect them into place and allow you to hold the window out like so. And then to bring it all the way in, press all the way up, and then drop the window back into position. And again, fly screens and blackout blinds on all these windows. And that concludes the handover video on this Laika Kosmo. I hope you enjoyed.